Welcome to New Game Plus. This is a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name is Kenny.
Red shirt Nolan.
And this is Retro Recap 16.
16.
We've done more recap episodes than some podcasts do episodes.
Why do you always throw shade on other people failing?
Get wrecked, everybody else. We have 16 recaps.
Every time we get to a recap, it reminds me that we've been consistent and delivering, and I'm proud of that. I can brag on us a little bit.
Well, some people might be asking what a recap episode is, Kenny.
What a recap episode is?
That's what they sound like.
That's what they sound like. Everybody sounds like you.
Allow me to explain. We need a break sometimes. We need a day off. We don't really take days off from the podcast, so every 20 episodes or so, 20-ish, 25-ish, we stick to it pretty tightly. We allow our community members to come in and take over the show and take you through the last 20-ish episodes to kind of catch up if you haven't been listening for a while. It's a good place to jump back on and get a sense of what we've been playing and what we thought about it. So, yeah, that's what a retro recap is.
Community members Garlyle, Shawna, and Klen are joining us again to host this retro recap, and they are talking about, so all of this begins with Super Paper Mario and includes games like Bassin's Black Bass and the dearly beloved Spyro Orange. I'm always like wowed by the games that end up in that list because they feel like they were so long ago, but they weren't. I mean,
no.
20's not
20 weeks ago.
That's not that long ago.
It's going to be an episode for the books. Enjoy.
Welcome to New Game Plus, a retro gaming podcast where three fans spend 18 weeks listening to one podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one game, and then they talk about it, and then we talk about it. I'm not Dustin, I'm Garlyle.
And I'm not Kenny, I'm Shawna.
I'm not Nolan, I'm Klen.
And this is Retro Recap 18. You heard our host's introduction, it's time for our usual trip down memory lane. A little shorter than the last one, but certainly not an uneventful one, as we wrap up the summer pool party.
Party!
Yeah, hot dogs on the grill.
Splishy splashy time!
Ah, yeah. But before we begin, why don't we introduce ourselves? We've done it before, so none of the usual what's your history with the podcast this time. Instead, excuse me while I steal Dustin's bit and ask, what are you playing right now? Oh, and no saying Pikmin. No saying Pikmin. We'll cover that at the end of the episode. Ladies first.
You know I was going to pull out. What are you playing right now? You stole my thunder.
Thunder from Down Under. Hey everybody, it's Shawna again, back at it. Y'all know me from our Discord channel, and I'm a customer, and I love retro games too, and I love all of you. So glad to be back on the podcast.
And yeah, obviously I'm Klen. Y'all know me if you've been around. I've been playing a lot of Link to the Past randomizer recently with some people in the community, and I also just picked One Piece Odyssey back up, which is the new One Piece game.
And I'm Garlyle. I've been around just a little bit at this point. I can say Pikmin because I'm not talking Pikmin 1. I've been getting addicted to the whole series recently. After recovering from Final Fantasy 16, after recovering from Tears of the Kingdom, it's been a couple months to be a gamer.
Oh my gosh, were we supposed to say what we were playing? I'm just playing Pikmin, that's all I'm playing.
I said don't say that, but fair enough.
That's all I can say. That's all I can say. Pikmin, that's it.
No Sims?
Actually, no. I want to play the horse and around Sims, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet. And yeah, no, I've been like Pikmin crazy. That's why I've entered it in every single pool this whole summer.
I think it counts if you were playing it before it was picked. So
yeah, I was.
I'll let it stand.
Fair
yes,
enough.
Pikmin.
So, this time I've not just brought some fun facts, but we also went and polled the community. And if you missed that poll, oh well, that's your sign to pay more attention to the Discord. Anyway, this recap's about celebrating and looking back as a community, so I'll have a few comments from community members, as well as some good old data about what games and episodes everybody loved as we go. That said, pop quiz! What was the newest game in this batch?
Oh, that is.
Oh, I think
Don't
I
look
know.
at your list, just try to guess.
I'm not. I was going to say the Wii game. The Wii game.
And I'm gonna say Retro Game Challenge.
It was Super Paper Mario.
Yes.
What was the oldest game in the batch?
Castlevania.
Yeah.
Correct, Castlevania. What system do you think we saw the most of?
Probably PS2.
Surprisingly, I think it was NES.
PS2 was close at 3, but it was actually the NES at 4. Of the 17 games eligible for a vote this time, how many of them got NGP?
Gosh, a lot of them.
12.
12 is exactly
12.
right. It's actually 70% NGP this time, which I think is
12.
probably one of the highest portions we've ever had. And finally, did Dustin's Segway game get better or worse this time?
Worse.
That's relative.
No,
You're right.
significantly worse.
It's all a matter of perspective. Some have been startlingly good. Others are paper thin. Like in our Retro Game of the Week! So, speaking of things that were paper thin, Super Paper Mario kicked us off this time with a director episode brought to us by D.H. Bowser. And it was, as we kind of mentioned, the very first time that we've had a Nintendo Wii game on the podcast. The Nintendo Wii is officially 15 years old. You're welcome and or I'm sorry to those listening at home.
I refuse to believe it. This was a mistake by the randomizer. We're not that old.
No, like I remember when we got our Wii growing up, and I wasn't young when that happened. So I feel very old.
I was a whole adult when that came out. Like, jobs and stuff, adulting.
Yeah, I was just getting out of high school. Oh, God, a little bit of pain, but such is how it is. But it was also an important game for our director, who was he said it was kind of part of the reason that he got back into gaming, was getting lucky with this one. And, I mean, Paper Mario has been something I've been seeing in the patron pools and stuff for a long time, but Super Paper Mario is definitely a distinctive one in that set.
Yeah, I do think it's really funny. Like you said, it was a big game for Derek, like he said on the episode, but it's a really interesting entry point to Paper Mario because of how different it is from especially the first two games, but pretty much all of them as a whole are very different from Super Paper Mario, which is like real-time platforming action game as opposed to a turn-based experience.
The weirdness of having the platformer spin-off of the RPG spin-off of a platformer.
I loved on the episode where there was some comment made that was really weird, making it sound like Paper Mario should just be a turn-based game because it doesn't make sense for Mario to be a platformer.
I do remember that.
Yeah, that turns it on its head, all right.
It sure does.
All right, so the next game we played was Future Cop LAPD, a 1998 PlayStation game. One of the things about this one that surprised me was that this was an EA title, and I wasn't prepared for it to be an EA title, but I also remember back in the late 90s, like EA got into lots of different types of titles. And this game in particular, I liked it, and I wanted to go back and play it some more. What did you guys think of this one?
I do not echo that sentiment whatsoever. I was done with this game in like 10 minutes, and I haven't thought about it since.
Okay, not that I'm thinking about it all the time, but I think that when we played it, it wasn't a bad game. Like, my note here is that I felt at the time of playing this game that it wasn't a bad game. It just was released at a bad time. Like, it felt older than it is.
One of the struggle of PlayStation 1 things where they just haven't figured out how to make 3D work quite well enough to achieve all the things it wanted. But
yeah,
one of the issues like this said on the episode was in 1998 when this game released, you were releasing alongside stuff like Final Fantasy VII and Ocarina of Time and Banjo-Kazooie and GoldenEye. Like, those are all top 10 games from that era when this game released, so like you weren't going to succeed as a new IP happening at that point.
Yeah, especially with a name like Future Cop Lapta. Like
Lapta. Oh, that's right.
Yep. This one though, like if you skipped over this episode because you saw the name and you were like, "Oh, this is a whatever game," I do suggest you give it a listen. It turns out this game's actually probably historically important in the development of things like League of Legends and Dota and Smite that are big deal games right now. So while Riot still hasn't sued them, despite the guys insisting they should be attorneys on the matter, it's an interesting one, if nothing else.
Okay, game number 3, Fire Emblem: The Sacred Stones.
Oh, I love
this
Fire
is a huge
Emblem.
one. Fire Emblem doesn't hit with me. I'm not a big strategy person, but I love Sacred Stones, even if I've never made it past like chapter 3.
I mean, I can get it. When you take a strategy game where it can take like several minutes, half an hour to do larger maps, but this is before they gave you the option to turn off permadeath and like somebody goes and gives you a 1% crit and you're like, well, okay, time to restart. Like, I understand that. But also it's Fire Emblem.
I think I say this every time we talk about Fire Emblem games, but my brain is just too itty bitty for Fire Emblem, and I just don't get it every time. I want to get it and I want to like it. It's just too much. And so it's whenever I have started playing Fire Emblem games, I feel like I get to a wall and I just smack it, and then I go like, these are not for me.
Yeah, it's interesting to compare it to the episode from way back when they played the third Fire Emblem game, which kind of was just a remake of the first one. But like technically on a mechanical level, it and this game are not necessarily all that different, but a whole bunch of subtleties in like improved presentation, like just better tutorialization and pacing, clearer information. Like, it's amazing what those little differences can do in making a game that I've seen a lot of people argue is where you should start playing the series.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Also, honorable mention, we talk a lot, or at least I feel like the last few months, or maybe since the holidays, like we talk a lot about like the Game Boy system, and this was another Game Boy system game. And I feel like the guys have really like either for the first time or re-fallen in love with the Game Boy Advance system, which has been really fun to listen to that evolve over the last like few months here.
It has become Dustin's favorite system after all.
Despite Shrek Castle at the Castle existing.
That's a top tier S game.
Next up, it's the one you've been waiting for, the one with celebrity guest Hank Parker. It's Bassin's Black Bass. Which, you know, most of you at home, if you didn't listen to the episode, you're probably not thinking much about that. And no, we did not actually have the celebrity guest, but we did in spirit. And it's worth noting this was an episode to get excited over. When I polled everybody, one of the questions was, hey, what's your favorite episode? 27% of people said Bassin's Black Bass was their favorite episode, twice as much as the next option. This one went over real well, and it was a blast, because I don't think the guys are used to coming face to face with a fishing game.
Especially not one that was so realistic.
Mhm.
There was a lot of effort and realism put into this one with like the weather system and the time of day, and what lures to use on which fish.
Yeah, it was totally a strategy RPG.
No questions.
Yeah, no, I kind of get it. It does have those like weirdly RPG-ish feel to it, framing it with a fishing tournament and all. Like, it's a distinctive game. Whether you necessarily liked it or not is another matter. I like fishing, but I only have so much patience. But you know,
Right. I think also just, gosh, there was like so much about this game and this week that we played, because not only was the game kind of a sleeper hit where everyone really enjoyed getting into the character or sharing their catches. I remember in Discord people were, showing what their like biggest catches were. But also like Kenny's first play, just watch it. Like if you watch none of our first plays, please watch Kenny try Bassin for the first time. So fun to watch him just get into this game. And I don't know, it was like a great episode to boot on top of that. It was just, I love when we have these games that feel like they're just going to be boring, or they feel like they're, not necessarily going to be great. And then the whole community rallies behind a game. And it's just so cool.
yeah, on the community front, I wanted to share. I let people write in a little bit of comments on their favorite episodes. And Keek said Bassin's Black Bass was a great one. It was surprising how much fun I had playing along with the guys. Dr. J PhD said Bassin's Black Bass getting the deadly serious, no, this is a legitimately good and deep treatment, kind of shows what happens when you go in with an open mind. And even Oolong Brothers left a note saying he loved Kenny claiming he's a bit of a redneck. Like, lots of love for this episode.
Nice.
I think we just got a lot of Kenny lore, and there's nothing better than that.
Oh yeah, and it's like all around a lake, too. We know that Kenny loves lake settings. All right, the next game we played was a Redux episode, and if you're not aware what the Redux episodes were, there were, I believe, our first 3 games ever that we've played that have been removed from the library, Half-Life being one of them, where the guys recommit to replaying the game and reevaluating the game. So we did Half-Life Redux, which is a 1998 PC title. One of the things that I loved in general about all of the Redux games that we've done is pulling in commentary from those first episodes and hearing just either how their opinions have evolved or not in some cases. But the Redux episodes are amazing. What did you guys think of that one?
Yeah, I loved seeing, especially getting to see Nolan get called out for his moral choices in Half-Life, whether accidental or otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing him be consistent 8 years in the making.
Rest in peace, Frank.
It's a great thing, just because, like, also now it means we as a community get to play along with the games that, we skipped over because nobody knew about the podcast back then, except Antonin.
Antonin was there.
Yeah, Antonin is always there.
And Jesse. I feel like those two. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, the guys still seem to love it, or at least, like, highly respect it for what it is, which is kind of about the best that I could say for my time with it. But I think between, like, this and other big FPS like BioShock and stuff, I'm kind of realizing I just only like FPS games when they're not shooters, when they're doing something else. And Half-Life feels like, despite all the plot and story and stuff, it is still very centrally a shooter.
Game number 6. We've got Wall Street Kid.
Mm-mm.
A 1989 NES title. This one is very important because I have been in this community for like 3 years, and I have been in every Patreon pool since I joined. And I have seen Zach put this into every single Patreon pool in all of that time and before then. And I am so glad that it finally got picked, and it did not even take a Patreon pool to do it. The randomizer was so kind.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
so
happy
cursed.
for Zach.
that was perhaps the most startling point, was just whenever we get those either big name games or the things that have been floating in the Patreon pool for a while, and just like, surprise, now you get it. With apologies to Zach, I don't know why. After having played the game, I really don't.
Mm-mm.
I know why. I put hours into this game that week.
Why?
Like, plural.
Why?
Why would you do this to yourself?
There's so many other things to do, like not that.
Wait, there are?
Yes, surprisingly. You could be playing things that aren't an incredibly slow point-and-quick / gambling, guessing / I don't know,
mobs
this one's a
involved.
weird one. I will give it
Yeah.
that it's a weird one.
Oh yeah, I could have been playing Bassin's Black Bass.
Yeah, exactly. Way better games. I actually have kind of a little bit of a beef to pick on this game. I was tricked by Antonin to play this because I was going through the comment or the channel where it was talking about this week's game, and Antonin had made the comment. I think it was Antonin that said that this was like Stardew Valley, but for like Wall Street. And of course, I hear Stardew Valley like anything, and I'm there. And this was not that. This was not Stardew Valley.
Yeah, no, this
Nope.
nope.
This is Spreadsheets the game.
I don't like it.
I will say it is not as aggressive as some other like economic-based games I've played. And I actually kind of appreciated how gamified it was in that stance. Because
Yeah.
it wasn't just Spreadsheets the game, make money, make number, go up. It had
I
a
think it
little bit
was.
more going to it.
Oh, like
Which-
dates. You can go on dates.
You can go on dates. You can buy your girlfriend a puppy.
I never bought her a puppy.
Next up is the game that Super Gamer Guy asked me to mention the quote from Nolan in the episode. The game that is perhaps the most un-American thing we have ever done as a nation, American Gladiators on the NES. A strange little multi-rounded minigame collection, but don't think WarioWare, because WarioWare's good. Yeah,
How did you know I was going to say WarioWare?
I mean, there's only so many minigame collections out
This
there
is
that are
hard
worth
because-
remembering, it turns out.
This is hard because I fall very much in the Kenny camp here, where this was like a big part of my childhood, a big part of, I think, like it was on Saturday or Sunday morning, and you would watch American Gladiators, and it was just so cool to watch these people do these sports. And to take something that meant something to somebody during their childhood and just like ruin it, but do it during the time that that's happening. It was a weird feeling to see this game, because it was like you had so many opportunities to make this great, but you didn't. And now we're playing it so many years later, and it's bad. It's just so bad.
Yeah, we've got that feeling coming up still, yet again, so don't worry about that. I will share in your misery very shortly.
I mean, I didn't think it was necessarily all bad. I actually came to really like the one wall minigame. Like, there was something satisfying about trying to speedrun that little bit. But that is the only enjoyment I got out of the game. And when the game wants you to play the entire rest of it to do those, no thanks.
Yeah, no, it's a hard pass.
So, wait, no. Because on the episode, Garlyle, they ranked all of the minigames, and I want to hear yours. Because mine is Joust, human basketball
Cannonball?
or whatever it was. Cannonball. Probably Wall.
Mm.
And then the other two.
Can barely even remember.
And then others.
I hated the joust and the human cannonball. I didn't like the little soccer mini game type thing that there was.
Fireball, yep.
The shmup was maybe okay above those, and then I actually really liked Wall. It kind of was just 1 out of 5.
I think I liked the ones that were more similar to the actual show. So it's like the Wall one I liked, and I liked Joust. And the soccer ball, put it in the goal thing, like that one was similar. But I really hated the one at the end where it was the shmup because, well, obviously we don't like shmups on this podcast and in this community. But like literally, as far if you're thinking about the show, that was the best part of the show, was watching like that game. And they took something that was so cool and made it something. It was almost like they reskinned some like tank shooter game. And we're like, yeah, Gladiators. All right. So the next game we played was Samurai Western, which is a 2005 PlayStation 2 title. And I thought this game was going to do really well, especially like early on. I love the idea. I kind of fall into Nolan's camp here. I love the idea of Westerns and like samurai stuff. And I love Quentin Tarantino too. And this just had that kind of feel. But then it just kind of, the novelty, I think, wears off pretty quick after you just get started. And I think that might be a issue with the games of that era too. Like I feel like a lot of games in like 2005 like started really strong, or they had really cool concepts. Like the early 2000s had cool concepts, and then they just would dissipate as you would play them.
Yeah, that was kind of the feeling I had, was like, oh, this is really cool, and then partway along I was realizing like, oh, actually this doesn't quite achieve the level of really good action game, because my standards for action games are, Devil May Cry and Bayonetta, and that's probably unfair, being realistic. Klen, were you the one who got through the entire thing that week, though?
I did play through the entire thing, and I was seeing, generally, especially in the episode, the drop-off point I was seeing was up, it was like missions 3 through 5 for most people. Directly after that, almost every mission is entirely different. You have a like disarm the bombs mission where you have to rescue women and children and disarm bombs instead of, beating enemies and beating bosses. You're tunneling down a mine and beating a boss at the end of it, and it's a whole maze system. You're chasing down, re-entering the big boss's mansion, and like there's a whole bunch of really unique missions after that, but I can understand why people fell off early. I will say, I think if this game had like a proper sequel, which I don't believe it did, it would have been really good.
Mm-hmm. I agree. There's still time.
I can see that.
The next game we played was Spyro Orange, The Cortex Conspiracy. It was a 2004 Game Boy Advance title. There are no words, only suffering.
Something inside of us died upon that day.
We would all rather play Shrek's Hassle at the Castle.
Any day.
See?
I think I speak for all of us when I say we would rather play Shrek Hassle at the Castle.
See, I told you it's a top-tier game.
Harold pointed out in the commentary, you really loved the hope Dustin got at the end of the Samurai Western when the Spyro game got pulled. So tragic to see the disappointment and darkness in his face growing while he was playing the first play. You can watch a man die in real time on the first play.
That's exactly what happens. Yes. And the hope, the optimism. I was so excited for Dustin at the end of Samurai Western. Like, I just wanted this so bad for him and for Spyro. And then this happened. It was so bad.
Yeah, it was like, okay, it's a GBA Spyro game. I remember those being kind of all right. And it's apparently a crossover with Crash Bandicoot. And
How can that be bad?
And then in the back of my head, alarms started going off saying, but why haven't you ever heard of it if this is a big deal?
Oh, yeah, you're right.
See, that was the big problem, is even hearing the episode and hearing the game revealed, I was like, yeah, okay, I have played those Spyro GBA games. Those are good. Those are, like, actually pretty good. And this was not one of those.
This game I played not long before I realized it was not good. And then I had this question, because it's been a long time since I've played a Spyro game. I questioned myself whether or not Spyro's actually fun. And I had to go back and play a Spyro game just to make sure, oh yes, Spyro is still fun. This game is just really bad.
I can't remember if they bring it up on the episode, but somehow this is the same company that I believe later went on to do, like, the Crash Bandicoot remasters. Like, 15 years down the line, they are actually making good games, but I don't know how they didn't go under after this game, because I don't think I've ever seen a company scuttle a beloved property, like, this hard.
Yeah, I just wonder if there was so much other games out there at the time that maybe this one just kind of got lost in the mix, which I think is good for those properties, that they didn't have to be responsible for what they did. But we see them.
Anyway, speaking of terrible GBA games, Mother 3. No,
What?
I'm just kidding. Don't worry. I can't even say that with a straight face. It was the start of the summer pool party. And with that, we had, throughout the summer pool party, we've had, like, multiple people often backing up the same games. And the first of those was Mother 3, being entered by Dominique, Walter, and Retroman. And, like, if you haven't heard of this, I don't blame you. It's never had an English release, Reggie Fils-Aime. But, you know, kind of a big deal.
This game was so cool. I hadn't heard about, I'd heard of the series. I've never played them before at all. And obviously, like, never got my hands on Mother 3. But watching the first play of this game, because I wasn't sure, and I was like, let me check this out. This is on my list now. I need to get my hands on this game somehow and play it, because it is so funny and it's so aware of itself. I love games that are like that. This game got me really excited for the summer.
Yeah, if there's a single game out of the entire list of recap games here, this is the one I need to go back and finish.
Yeah, it is quite the long one. It was asked to specifically point out by Bastius the names of the characters that they chose, by the way, in the first play, because they were all together for the first play, right? And so you have, you know, Lucas, who they know who Lucas is, and then they don't realize that there's a show me the default name button. So his brother becomes Ken, his dad becomes Bertus, not Brutus, Bertus, there's a letter missing, Thyre the dog, and of course they named the mother 3. Because, I mean, what else are you going to name her?
That was hilarious. You're right. They were together. Also, I would like to petition that the guys do all the first plays together from now on.
I would like them to do the first plays together. I want their cross input with each other.
Yeah. That was great. All right. The next game we played in not our summer pool party. We alternate back and forth. Also, before we move on from our summer pool party, we did have Nolan, I believe it was Nolan, predict that this was going to be the best summer pool party that we've ever had, that all the weeks were going to be like good or interesting games. So this next grouping of games is a testament to that and that prediction, and we're going to see if it comes to fruition. So the next game in our not summer pool party was the 1986 NES game of Castlevania, which is obviously, it speaks for itself. It is the first in many, many games. It creates history of NES titles and beyond.
Yeah, we go from one big producer chosen, or one big Patreon chosen entry in Mother 3, straight into a pretty big deal game, just completely off the randomizer. I mean, pretty much anybody's going to get hyped after that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this one, I respect Castlevania. I didn't finish this one. I got to like level 2, and it's sitting behind me, like right here. And I'm never gonna go back and finish it. I can't get on with this one. I love 4. I don't like this one.
I mean, I can't really blame you. This is one of the games. This is like with Contra and stuff in the list of games that people think of when they talk the words NES hard. Like, yeah, you've got infinite lives and continues and stuff, but yeah, no, this game is not afraid to just knock you off a ledge or have like certain boss RNG patterns just like legitimately just box you in so that you can't do anything. Like, you can get good at this game, but it's still going to be brutal to you, and I can see where that would drive someone's patience.
Yeah.
Especially if you have problems with stairs. See Kenny's entire argument, the entire episode.
Oh my gosh, the stairs. Oh, and his
I
first
love the
play.
stairs episode.
Oh my gosh. Did you see the first play of him with his stairs? It was so great.
Our next game was our second pool party title. This one submitted by A-Spot and Cortex. This is a pretty legendary one in its own right yet again. Kingdom Hearts, a Square action RPG from 2002 on the PlayStation 2. I grew up on this one. I don't know about anyone else.
I had it.
Yep, I had it growing up, and I think a lot of people did. It probably contributed to why it, along with Castlevania, which we just talked about, were the two tying entries for the favorite game our community played along with.
Yeah, I can believe that.
I would always think Bassin's Black Bass.
I mean, that's a favorite episode, but in terms of games, it is kind of interesting because I think, like, just like Castlevania is definitely a tough game and sometimes not in some great ways, Kingdom Hearts is a little bit rough around the edges to actually go back and play now. Like, I mean, I still adore its goofy, earnest, just completely teen drama cast. But yeah, there's a story about how this was Square's attempt to make their own Super Mario 64, and if they hadn't have worked in the RPG stuff and the weird story, I don't think they'd have been anywhere close, personally.
Yeah, the Kingdom Hearts is hard for me because I very much appreciate the fandom. I really appreciate the game. I had it, and I kind of fell into like the camp with I think a couple people. I think like Nolan was one of them, but like, and I never really said this, and I thought that maybe, you know, it would be a bad taste, but I always felt that this game was a little overrated as far as, you know, it goes. But I was happy to see that I wasn't the only person that kind of feels that way a little bit. I mean, I appreciate the game. I think that the game is great, and I think the series and everything is great, and I love that everybody that loves this game has it. Just for me personally, it just didn't hit.
People love Kingdom Hearts, like Klen, who's got that Keyblade sitting right next to him. But I don't think they necessarily love Kingdom Hearts the game.
The first.
I do. Yeah, I mean, I was going to say that too. Kingdom Hearts 1 is a really, really hard entry point, even if it's like pretty narratively necessary. It's far from the best game in the series, like very far.
Good to know that maybe someday I will come back to it then.
Go play 2.
I did want to share.
Play 2.
Yeah, I did want to share before we leave this one behind a very specific comment from Levi, who said, "It's been a complete joy sharing these games with my daughter, Kyrie. She cried playing Mother 3 and learning about grinding experience to beat the boss, and then she played along with Kingdom Hearts and was blown away by everybody talking about the inspiration for her name. This podcast really has provided a bridge from my childhood to my wife and kids, so just wanted to say thanks, and here's to many more NGP memories."
I got goosebumps. That was so cute.
Okay, so we just had 3 complete back-to-back bangers. Big name titles, right? Well, I mean, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 was a big title. Well, okay, maybe the, NES one was a big deal. I don't think anybody knew that there was a Game Boy, kind of Metroidvania in Radical Rescue.
Nope.
Nope.
I sure didn't know.
Yeah, same.
I did not either. And if I had this game as a kid, I would have loved this game as a kid. I had a Game Boy growing up, and there's limitations with the console. There's also limitations with things called batteries, and you only have so many games in the 80s and early 90s. When I saw this one, I was like, oh man, if I had this in the backseat of the car on long trips, this would have been the game that I played. So little 8-year-old me was very excited about this one.
I think if I'd had this in the back of a car when I was a kid, I would have launched my Game Boy out the window.
Okay then.
This game has some extremely precise and punishing platforming and enemy placement in it. I can't say I had a great time with it, to be honest.
I had a great time with this one, but only, I feel like, because I played less than 45 minutes of it. I took a loop through one of the first areas and said, man, that was fun. That platforming is pretty solid. Pretty good controls on this Game Boy game. And yeah, the more I heard about it throughout the week, the more I was glad I didn't keep playing, I think.
All right, so the next game that we played, it's a little meta. It was called Retro Game Challenge, which was a 2007 Nintendo DS game. And the premise of the game, oh gosh, I don't know if my brain can handle this. Garlyle, you might have to help me out. It's a retro game now of present day gaming back in 2007 of retro games from the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, I mean, that as strange as that sounds, that kind of covers it. Basically, a DS collection of pseudo-retro games that were meant to be evocative of very specific older games, but not literally them. You don't have Dragon Quest, you have Gwadia Quest, right? But otherwise, it was hey, go score some points in an old school shmup and figure out its secrets. And the idea of it was actually kind of neat in seeing all these little spins. And I think one thing I did appreciate was that most of these games were not exactly what you would have gotten back in the day. They controlled a little better, they were paced a little bit smoother, and I think that does make a lot of difference. It's the way we remember retro games being sometimes, I think, as opposed to how they actually were.
Yes, and this one was our third pool party game. This one was submitted by Not Enough Dog, Tim of the T, and some dude named Klen, I think.
Who's that guy?
I don't know. But I love this game. I had this on my DS back in the day. And yeah, I put a lot of time into Gaudia Quest. Very choice.
Yeah, I feel like this was a push that happened explicitly because of the guys getting together and doing the retro game challenge. I don't think I'd seen it in a Patreon pool before then, and it just lined up perfectly.
It wasn't eligible up until recently.
It's a 2007 game too. Gosh, that must be wrong. It's not that old. Klen, since you had this game and the cover of the game is pretty undescript, do you remember how you ended up getting it as a kid?
I believe I had actually put it on a flashcard for my DS, but we ended up getting a lot of games. This is one of those games you would have found at GameStop for $6 in an unmarked case or an envelope up on the shelf in a cubby.
Walmart bargain bin.
Would have been one of those. Yep.
Yeah, there's some cool concepts about this game. One of the parts that I thought was pretty novel was them trying to, for better or for worse, try to recreate a retro gaming experience where you'd have to read the manual. You would have to look through magazines to learn more about the games, which is very much how your retro gaming experience was back then. So I appreciate that they did that. I thought that was a very unique way of presenting these titles to people.
Our next title was Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. This was another randomly selected game. It was released in 1993 on the Sega Genesis. And it was further confirmation that the hosts are extremely biased against puzzle games.
Mm-hmm. I had Durbin growing up. I had this game. And it was really interesting to revisit this now because I remember this was one of those core memories unlocked. I forgot that I owned this game until it was pulled. And then I saw, the cover art and everything, and then the first play. And something unlocked in my brain where it was like, oh my gosh, I had this on my console.
That was me with Bassin's Black Base, was just remembering, wait a second, I know this game.
It's like, I remember this. Going back and watching the game the week that we played everything, I don't think I played it right. And in fact, I think that maybe I was playing on the side of the TV that was the computer the whole time.
Yeah, I have to say this one was rough. I have flashes of memories of trying to play this game when I was younger or even a teenager and being like, what the heck is this? Jesus Christ. And just getting completely dunked off the field by round 2, which I think was a lot of our community's discovery of this game this week. Fortunately, I'm coming back to it having played an absolute ton of Puyo Puyo Tetris, and I kind of shredded through the game that week. It got mentioned a couple times on the episode, if you're curious how that went, but...
Yeah, I'm not good at Puyo Puyo.
I wouldn't blame anybody. This is technically a rebuild of Puyo Puyo 1, and it is also it's also on the SNES as Kirby's Avalanche, something that didn't really come up in the episode, but if you've played Kirby's Avalanche, you have played this game, just different coat of paint. I don't think anybody in the Puyo Puyo fandom would say you should go back and start playing it with the first game, though. Just don't do that to yourself.
This game also was the first one in the whole summer block to not get NGP.
Well, the good news is we recovered from that right afterwards with the fourth Patreon pool game, Brave Fencer Musashi, submitted by Toby OP and Replicated Flame. And if you thought you heard a question mark in my voice over this PS1 action RPG Ocarina of Time clone, I say that just to drive Nolan absolutely nuts. If that sounds like there was a question in my voice, the guys loved it, but the community largely seemed to bounce off it.
I think that the guys like the Crash Bandicoot part of the game.
The opening in the game was one of the strongest on the console.
Yeah. It was very strong.
Yeah. It did not keep up that energy.
Yeah. Wasn't this the game that some of the commentary for this game was that it did a lot but didn't do a lot well or something like that? It was like a jack of all trades type game. I think this was that one.
Yes,
yeah.
I remember that one, and that was my feelings on it too. Is kind of like everything in this game is B-list. It's a stage below the quality that would really hook me, and that's kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, I remember the cover of this game, and it obviously didn't do it. I never played it back in the day, and it definitely didn't look like a game I would have been interested in. But if I had bought the game purely off of the cover, it was not the game I expected it would be. If that makes sense.
There's no fencing.
Yeah.
Terrible name, by the way.
Yeah. I'm not horribly offended that this one got New Game Plus status, but I feel like there are worse games that have gotten it, and there are better games that haven't. And it just didn't, I don't know. It didn't feel as good as something like, I don't know, Spyro 1.
I thought you were going to say Spyro Orange. Jesus Christ.
Nothing feels good there.
We could have played Crash Purple. So I'm happy with Brave Fencer Musashi.
All right. The next game we played was Dragon Quest II Luminaries of the Legendary Line. That's quite the title. It is a 1987 Famicom NES title. I am not super familiar with early Dragon Quest games. I'm more familiar with the more recent titles. I didn't have an NES growing up either. This would have been one of those games I would have rented as a child, not know what to do, wander around, die a bunch, but then think I did a good job. So, I don't know, I like games like this now. And it also seems very similar to other titles that we've played that are similar to Dragon Quest. So I was pleased with this one.
I mean, I would expect it to feel kind of like a bunch of other titles that we've played on the podcast, because, I mean, if I've got to complain about Dragon Quest II, it's that it's every JRPG's template for basically the next, I don't know, ever, in many ways, for better or worse. Which means I don't think there's a whole lot of reasons to go back and play this one specifically, but that's kind of just me.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't want to say samey, but you're right. It's a little samey.
It's a little samey. It's not doing a whole lot. It's doing a lot of things that are kind of unique, but only from the view of 1987.
Yeah.
And I'll still say, I think one of the weird things about this episode was how much talk there was about the game, like, not being clear on where to go, or what to do. Because I never felt like I needed to look at a guide. I felt like the game pretty clearly told me where to go and what to do. Not that I finished it by any means, but...
Yeah, it's not too bad. The thing that struck me about the episode is how much, like, they talk about certain things like, oh my god, you get a boat, you get party members. Like, yeah, again, from the perspective of 1987, big deal advancements from Dragon Quest. You look at that now and you're like, huh. And?
Yeah, it's hard when we play games that are that old, where in 1987 that seemed like something special, and then now in 2023 it's like, yes, and we want all this other stuff too, and that's what our expectations are. So yeah, sometimes it's really hard to go back and play these like older games without bias from what we're expecting now.
I mean, or you could play it with all the bias like Kenny did. Which,
yeah, that's true.
I think I have to shout out, a lot of people were mentioning just how much they love just hearing Kenny absolutely gush over Dragon Quest. Because, you know, I will say, me and him do have in common that we both grew up on Dragon Warrior. I didn't end up as fond with it, but he was clearly super excited. I wonder if he's actually gone and, like, maybe he's off playing Dragon Quest III right now. Maybe that's why we're recording the retro recap. You don't know. I don't know.
We don't know. But, you know, that is a note that I had too, is that I love when we have episodes in general where you can tell that it hits the heartstring with one of the hosts, and these types of games definitely hit for Kenny and for Dustin, and hearing Kenny just gush about this game this week was really nice.
And our last game for this pool party.
Already?
And the last game for this recap.
How did we get here already?
I know, right?
Man. This
game was, like I said, another Patreon pool. This was a producer pool. No, this was a regular Patreon pool.
This is a regular one. Yep.
The producer pool's after this.
The hot tub after party.
But this one, oh boy, we had...
This is a big one.
Yeah.
This was submitted by Garlyle, whoever that is, J. Robert, Cecil, and Sasser. It is a 2002 GameCube game, and it is among the best fighters that have ever been released. Soulcalibur II.
Certainly one of the most fondly remembered.
I can hear, when you say Soulcalibur II, I just hear it in my head.
A tale of souls and...
Two!
A tale of souls and swords, eternally retold.
Oh my gosh, this game. I'm so thrilled that we pulled it finally. I know, Garlyle, I know that you guys were like campaigning for this one just as much as I was like campaigning for Pikmin and campaigning for Majora's Mask. I'm thrilled that this was the last one that got picked. I have such a history with this game, which you would never expect from me. But yeah, I had all three of them. Well, I had the PlayStation 2 version, the GameCube version, and the completely unreleased Xbox version as well. Like, nobody had it except for me and I think one other person. So I'm so glad that we pulled this one.
I can't believe they would have disrespected you on the episode like that by saying that nobody owned the Xbox version.
Yeah. I mean, I was the only one that had it.
They didn't even ask you.
Yeah,
no, they didn't.
Fun fact, I think I'm the other person who has it, actually. Like, I played the GameCube version a lot with Cecil as a kid, but the version I personally owned happened to be the Xbox version, because that was the one from a pawn shop. But, yeah, a little while ago, I crossed my own 200-episode threshold, and that prompted me to sit down and do, like, a massive tier list of everything I'd played with the guys. You can find it on YouTube if you want. But in the middle of it, I realized in 200 episodes, we hadn't played a single actually good fighting game. Like, the closest we got was Mace, which was a whatever fighting game. And other than that, it was
Balls
garbage.
Was
like,
good.
You take those words back. But
you leave him right where you left him,
Klen,
Shawna.
Exactly.
Klen has the game.
So we made the effort to, like, it didn't have to be Soulcalibur 2. I was just pushing for, like, hey, if you've got a favorite fighting game, put it in the pool. So we've had, like, Tekken games. We had somebody was submitting Street Fighter 3 Alpha. So I was just glad to have something at the end that was a really good fighter that finally, I think, maybe made Dustin genuinely enjoy a fighting game. Same with Kenny, which was a hard sell.
Such a good game.
Yeah, I was amazed, too, at, like, how little the game has aged. I went back to it after playing Soulcalibur 6 a little bit in the recent weeks, which is, like, 2 decades removed, just about. And it was amazing how much, like, the same moveset was still working on Keyleak and how much it still felt like it played at the same pace. And even, like, the visuals didn't feel that dated. Like, genuinely an amazing game for its time.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember the hype around this game when it first came out, too, and exactly like what you said, it's a really good entry point for people who maybe fighting games just are not their genre. Because this game was so good, it had me convinced that I was into fighting games. And I wasn't. It was just I really liked this one.
I think something worth noting for maybe why this game was so popular, especially the GameCube version, was that after Wind Waker had released, this was the game that showed us, like, something akin to the Space World demo Link in a fighting game. And that's what everybody wanted. And that's why the GameCube version is so well known and so well respected. Like, it delivered what everybody wanted out of that they weren't getting necessarily from Wind Waker.
Oh, I never thought about that before.
That's a really good theory.
All right. And with that, we're wrapping up the retro recap, but we're not technically wrapping up the summer pool party because we're just here so y'all can have 2 weeks with the best game ever made, Pikmin. Yeah, just in case you haven't heard, by the way, Pikmin is in fact the next game. It was chosen in the producer pool because a whole bunch of us banded together after seeing how much of a push there was for Pikmin over the summer, and, well, we managed to make 2 miracles happen this year. So
many miracles actually this year.
Yeah. I mean,
we got Spyro Orange.
Okay, I was thinking about Ace Attorney.
Okay, that's fair. That's better.
Yeah.
But
It was also in December.
While we
It was
won't
this year.
while we won't discuss Pikmin here, because we'll have the opportunity to do that next retro recap, I am curious to hear, do you think it'll get New Game Plus?
It better.
It depends on how bitter Dustin is about his Pikmin dying.
Oh, that's true.
I've had so many die. I'm sad about it.
All right.
But yes, I do think they will.
Yeah, they better.
Yeah, same. All right. So, before we head out,
We quit. We quit if they give it.
yeah, they can find new
no.
retro recap hosts.
Yeah, we quit. There'll be an uprising.
So before we head out, I do want to ask, as we wrap this up, what was the favorite game that you played alongside the podcast out of these 18? And what was your favorite episode to listen to? For myself, while you ponder the answers, I will say that, interestingly, my favorite game to play this week probably was Mean Bean Machine. Now that I actually have an understanding of how Puyo Puyo works, it was like uniquely satisfying to go back and just stomp on that game and just actually see that measure of how far I've improved. As for my favorite episode, I'm stealing Soulcalibur. Yeah, it was the one I got them to play after a long push. Deal with it. I'm a little biased.
I think that my favorite game to play was Soulcalibur, just because of the trip down memory lane that it gave me. I really enjoyed that era of gaming for myself. And my favorite to listen to, that's a hard one. I'm going to not be Kenny and say 15 different things. So I'm going to say one answer. And I'm going to say that Bassin's Black Bass was my favorite episode of these ones.
I had actually gone through and ranked all of the games. So if you'll allow me to.
Oh my gosh.
Live tier list, everybody.
Okay, here we go.
My favorite was Samurai Western. As I said in my commentary that was read on the episode, it's the best NGP game I've played this year. Followed by Soulcalibur II, Mother 3, Pikmin, Fire Emblem, Super Paper Mario, Half-Life, Kingdom Hearts, Retro Game Challenge, Dragon Quest II, Brave Fencer Musashi, TMNT 3, Castlevania, Dermbim, Bassin's Black Bass, Future Cop, Lap Dance, Wall Street Kid, Spyro Orange, and ending with American Gladiators.
Below Spyro Orange.
Yes. Funny enough, American Gladiators was my favorite episode to listen to, even though it was the bottom of my list for games.
All right. That'll be about wrapping it up for us. So, if you liked what you've heard this episode, you should come by the Discord, whether it's to drop off commentary, play along with people, heck, catch us for the next retro recap, and I might be reading your commentary on the episode, because that was kind of nice to have all the extra voices. Like, we always talk about how it's a big community-oriented podcast, and, like, we mean it. We want you guys to have the voice in this, too, so come along. Pop by the NGP website and hit the Join Us on Discord button.
Yes, you can also just type in discord.gg/plus. That'll bring you right to the Discord invite link.
Yeah. And you can also head to patreon.com/NGP podcast if you're enjoying the show as a whole, and join the ranks of those of us who support the show financially. We're coming up on like 8 years of the podcast, and who knows, you may want to be a patron when it comes time for that big episode 400. I wonder if the guys will be doing the like live call-ins again, because that seems to be the habit now, and that was a great time.
It is 2 years in the making, so we'll see.
Yep. We have expectations now.
Yep. If you do join us on Patreon, you'll be around the likes of our producers. The increasingly long list of Adam, Alex, Amarley, and Antonin, Ben, Big Dude, Brunk, DH Bowser, Ellis Fishy, Francesca Gimbin, Harold, J. Robert, Jake, Jared, Joey, Jordan, Justin, Kenny's Beard, Kirk Savage, Klen, Knickknack, Corey, Levi, Maxima, Not Enough Dog, Pedro, Replicated Flame, Sajan, Shane, Shawna, Psychomantis, Thomas, Unbedavable, Siegfried, and Zion. Or you could even go above and beyond, and if you want to do like DH Bowser and bring a specific game on the episode and just treat the entire community to it and show up yourself, you could become a director like myself, BroJim, Daniel, and Super Hypered have. A huge thank you to Dustin, Kenny, and Nolan for inviting us back. Big thank you to Dan Willett for editing this cast, Dylan for the video cast, and Dave for the graphic editing we've gotten in recent months. And hey, to my co-hosts, if there's anything you want to chat about last minute, self-promotion or promotion for somebody else on Discord or anything, like the fact that I completely forgot to mention the NGP console ranking tier list, which was put up on their YouTube channel, and you should absolutely go watch so you can be as mad as everybody else about GameCube being a supposedly, like, what was it, B tier that it got placed in?
It was a wild time. You guys need to go watch that.
Yeah. If you've got anything else you want to shout out, now is the time.
I'm going to hop in and say that one of our dear host, Nolan, he started making content on his YouTube channel. I would definitely recommend going and checking him out. He has been doing some really cool shorter form content about retro games, and you should really, really subscribe to his channel and watch all his videos because they're great.
Yes. And if you want to find stuff that I do, I always, if I put anything out, if I'm live on Twitch or whatever, I always put it in the self promo in the Discord. So keep an eye out there. If you want to find my links, they're pretty much all posted whenever I do that, so you'll find it there.
Yeah, and rather than promoting myself this time, I'll just say the self-promo channel is great. We have a ton of creative community members. People like Astral Soul and Van Fernal are out there streaming. We have, like, musicians sharing works now. Like, it's just a good time if you want to find some stuff to watch.
Yeah.
So,
amazing community.
Yeah. Our regular hosts will be back next time alongside the Captain Olimar himself with Pikmin. Until next time, I've been not Dustin.
I've been not Kenny.
I've been not Nolan.
And this has been New Game Plus.